Okay, so welcome back to another Cardano video. Today I'm joined by DC from Liqwid Finance to get an update on how things are going for Liqwid right now and touch on some of the exciting stuff that's going on within the Cardano community right now, from the development, where we stand. And I think DC being involved with Liqwid is a great source to get a lot of that information from. So DC, welcome. Thanks very much for coming back on.
Paul, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, great. Look, let's jump straight into it. I suppose for anyone who hasn't heard of Liqwid, I will put links to the other interviews we've done down below. Can you give the 30 to 60 second high level what Liqwid is?
Absolutely. Yeah. Liqwid is an open source liquidity pool for interest rate curves. So essentially depositors and suppliers come along and deposit ADA and other Cardano native tokens and make those tokens available for other borrowers in the system to come along, collateralize a position, and actually open a loan against that. When you deposit your tokens into our system, what makes us different from a bank or a centralized lending app is that you actually mint a deposit interest-bearing token. We call those Q tokens in our system. So essentially, everyone who's a supplier in this system has their supplied tokenized balance plus the interest that is earning every block in the Liqwid market for that specific asset. So that's kind of the 1-2 process of supplying tokens, minting Q tokens that are your supply balance plus interest, and then making that balance available for another user to come along, collateralize a position, and then borrow those tokens.
Yeah, great. And I suppose it's completely decentralized. There's lots of centralized platforms out there as well, but with Liqwid, this process will be reliant on the smart contracts then within Cardano.
Right, so completely decentralized, yes. It's opposed to like giving up your private keys to a third-party custody. That's a centralized lending system that allows you to earn some APY and yield on your tokens, but at the risk of a third party, essentially owning your tokens. Yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose where do you guys stand now? What is the stage that we're at? We're getting smart contracts on Testnet. So where is Liqwid now?
Yeah, we're talking about this pre-recording, running the Alonzo Blue nodes right now. The team is a part of the Plutus Partners group, building out the Oracle system and really some of the fine-tuning mechanisms of how we're actually going to distribute LQ through the governance and DAO mechanisms that we have in place. But really, Liqwid is at a place now where as soon as a public testnet for Plutus is live, the team should be able to deploy the contracts that we have right now. In between prototype and production ready contracts, but by the end of July, we'll be entering our first security audit. So at that time, we'll have, the closest to production contracts that we've had, at all in existence. So that's really exciting and moving at a great pace. Every week you see real development from the team. Every week we go through milestones. We reach, certain places that, where there are issues or dependencies that we had on the IOHK Plutus guys. We're solving those problems. We're coming out with the solutions to fix them. So it's a really good pace.
Yeah, I suppose it's great to finally be at the stage where you can start testing out some of what you had before was probably a bit of theory on how the smart contracts would work on the actual testnet, and to be able to actually run them now is a great stage to be at, and things can accelerate fairly quickly from here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the plan, right? It's like getting to this point of, running Alonzo Blue and having that first smart contract run on the public testnet. Like that was actually huge and a ton of work on the back end from IOHK, and all the Plutus partners and pioneers kind of went into getting to that point. Now it's really just about optimizing. It's about getting the infrastructure ready. We talk about like the wallet solutions. I think I saw something awesome from Alessandro from Berry Pool, and he came out with like a DApp, in the browser wallet solution that you could use possibly like in a Chrome browser to kind of have a MetaMask-like experience for interacting with Cardano dApps and DeFi applications. So that type of thing is what I mean by like the infrastructure side and having that ready to go from day one as well. It's as important as, the Oracle solution and making sure that, you have a secure way to get price feeds 24/7. So these are the things that now our devs are like spending a lot of time focused on. And I think that it's great because it's not just Liqwid focused on getting things like Oracle's right. It's all of the other DeFi teams that are also building on Cardano. And that's a place that we look to collaborate. We look to work with other teams and, talk to, existing providers out there. So things like that are kind of happening in the background right now.
Yes, was the first smart contract running was a huge milestone for every project that's building on Cardano or looking to build on it. Seeing that first smart contract run is it's a huge stepping stone. It means that anyone else can come in and start trying to get theirs running now as well. On the Alonzo Blue on the testnet, what stage are we at in that? Are there many people involved in it now, or how far along are we on that and getting to the next stage?
Yeah, I think right now it's still a pretty small group. I think IOHK, kind of like what they did with the ITN for Shelley staking, is starting with, the close and trusted stake pool operators, and then having them, bring their +1 or +2 into the group, and then kind of scaling it up from there, which I think is a very, systematic and kind of strategic approach to doing this. But it's also like tactical, because they're moving so quickly each week. They're going from, the start of Alonzo Blue to basically being able to kind of graduate and move into the next color, phase of Alonzo. So our stake pool and CTO Holger is running Alonzo Blue nodes. Our Plutus partners and devs at Liqwid M Labs are working with the Plutus team, and have, I'm sure, ready to run our first version of our contracts as soon as that functionality kind of gets to a point where we can do so on Alonzo testnet. So yeah, there's great progress being made, like I said. So yeah.
Great. I suppose coming then into DeFi in general in Cardano, what is your view on it out there right now? So we're seeing more and more projects coming out all the time that are looking to build on Cardano, starting to talk about it. So now is the time when projects actually get to go out there and prove what they want to build and start showing some real development, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely already see it. I mean, the growth from where we are now to even, this time last quarter is, to me, massive. And it's a testament to not only where we've gotten with Alonzo and the rollout of that from IOHK side, but also just the community maturing and getting to a place where, there's independent teams kind of popping up in Cardano, whether they're related to other blockchains or, completely independent teams of analysts and engineers saying, hey, we want to build something cool, whether it's in DeFi or totally separate. I'm seeing so many, awesome things in the NFT space pop up. And I really am excited to see kind of where that goes and takes off with smart contracts. And it's going to become its own, like it already is, its own like ecosystem within Cardano. And it's like hard to even keep up with everything happening there. So with the emergence of smart contracts and kind of what that means for just being able to automate, any system with escrow settlements and payments, like the DeFi kind of core functionality that we get from apps like Uniswap and Compound and things like that. And the liquids and the swaps are also coming, but there's also really synthetic assets with Indigo protocol. There's Damon Exchange trying to do like, strategies and, kind of automated hedge fund type plays on DeFi protocols. There's all these different, teams working out there independently that are going to converge at some point around August, September. And it's just going to be great to see so many different protocols, some in the public, some still building in private, kind of all go live around the same time. It's a huge kind of catalyst for the entire Cardano ecosystem.
Yeah, I suppose it is great to see a lot of these coming together, and what the Plutus Pioneers program has done, and people being involved in Alonzo Blue now, is giving you good connections with other projects that maybe you don't have to do everything yourself. Maybe there's other solutions out there. You guys need oracles. Lots of other projects need them as well. Maybe there's collaborations there that different projects can focus and get help from others as well.
Yeah, we're also just trying to build as much as we can, open source it as soon as we can. Like the Plutus State Manager prototype that we built, for example, is something we look to open source pretty soon here to all of the Plutus pioneers and partners, as a way to basically spend into a UTXO and create multiple instances of the same contract, so that you don't have the one user being able to spend the UTXO per block issue that you kind of have and see on UTXO blockchains with contracts like Ergo right now has, for instance. And there's kind of other ways to mitigate this too, and that might not really, even in its current instance, be something we need for production, V1 day one, but it'd be great to have, and it's a great thing that we can put out there because it's not so much tied to the logic of how Liqwid as a protocol works, but it's more tied to how you can actually just create and kind of scale a single contract UTXO instance to be able to use across a single block in by multiple different users. And that's something that could help any Cardano DeFi or, any Cardano dApp really that's operating at that type of scale, without really giving away any, strategic or any of our, Liqwid secret sauce, if you will. And to be honest, I honestly think that the DeFi protocols that are coming up right now, a lot of these teams are Haskell based. A lot of these engineers have functional programming experience. So I think that many of them are going to take like the years and years of Haskell app development and functional programming that they have under their belt and just quickly apply that to Plutus. Like I just look at the ramping up process, and we just onboarded 2 new devs, just last week. Some are going to work only on Liqwid USD. Some will continue working on Liqwid and get that rollout to where it needs to be in terms of everything we need for V1. But these guys are really learning, and girls as well, learning Plutus at a very fast rate when they're onboarded. It only takes 1 to 2 weeks for like a very seasoned Haskell dev to just pick up Plutus and kind of run with it. So I definitely think that the learning curve, especially with just semi-functional docs at this point, is getting much quicker than it was even when we started the project. So that's like something to note as well.
Yeah, I suppose the barrier to entry there for new developers coming in is a lot smaller than it may be in some other ecosystems out there. When you have people who might have nothing to do with cryptocurrency, but they've been building with Haskell for the last few years, then it's not a huge step to come in then and start being able to produce functional code within the Cardano ecosystem. So I've seen a lot of adverts lately for Haskell developers. I think they're becoming fairly highly sought after by projects that are looking to build on Cardano. And I think that's only going to increase. So learning Haskell is a very good skill to acquire right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard just M Labs, who's a Plutus partner and also a company we're working closely with for Liqwid. They're working with a client's totally separate dev team that's building like on Cardano, a stable coin and foreign exchange marketplace. So there's some really interesting things happening there. And, you're not too far away from that point, just rebuilding individual stock exchanges for nation states. And then you have, exchange as a service for all of these different, government level agencies and, finance departments. And all they have to do really is tack on a Tala Prism to have a fully suited digital identity system and kind of Web3 framework for doing KYC and AML. That's like really powerful. And when you talk about implementing monetary policy at that scale, and it kind of all starts with, okay, what's your way to actually handle not just monetary policy and identity, but exchanging of different assets, and how do you even handle your own, stock and equities trading and things like that, bonds, things like that. So yeah, really exciting things coming to Cardano pretty quickly. I think that September is going to kind of be another one of those watershed moments for the entire ecosystem where it's like, okay, they last year this time said that no staking was going to happen and that wasn't going to come to mainnet, and like here we are a year later, everyone's kind of like used to staking, and it's kind of like it's been here. We're all kind of really anticipating these Alonzo color codes to go through and get to the final mainnet. But yeah, I definitely think the same rollout feel and kind of process. We've been here before. We've kind of seen this, and we know how IOHK likes to do this in these steps. I think that it's really just a matter of trusting the process, realizing that teams like Liqwid, and there's dozens others, are dedicated, every single day to just working on our code base and our platform. And we're all getting to a point where it's time to, either enter security audit, release that first version of the public testnet, getting to a point where, we're doing the final steps up to launching on mainnet and V1. And many of us, hopefully, everyone that's building right now will be able to actually have all the infrastructure, all the tools, everything from Oracle wallets, really figured out and sorted, so that day one on Plutus, you have several DeFi protocols just kind of going live all at the same time. And I think that would actually be really cool and exciting.
Yeah, I'm in a sense wishing away the next few months. Like there's going to be lots of exciting announcements coming out, and great to see what teams are building. But when we can actually roll that out onto mainnet, I think there's going to be a crazy few weeks. And then in the big picture, that's only the start of it. Like, as you say, this time next year, look at the difference in a year now where we are. This time next year within Cardano, when we start to see how many applications are running online. I've seen references to some of these stock exchanges and stuff like that, like you mentioned there, and lots of kind of rumors, I suppose, of what can be built there. So I think there's endless possibilities about what we might see even in a year's time, because once the first few roll out and show what's possible, there's so much can be built on top of that then.
Yeah, totally. And that's like, that might even be, a year, multiple years out play, but even just on the DeFi side of things, like that's going to obviously, take off so much faster than the centralized working with, entire governments to kind of implement some of these financial solutions, identity solutions. But I definitely think on the DeFi side of things, you're going to have multiple different algo stablecoins on Cardano. Liquid USD, we're working on our own implementation of a stablecoin. It's going to be a capital efficient, no interest payment stablecoin that basically allows anyone to lock up ADA in a collateralized debt position and mint a USD soft peg token. They can use that to power any other DeFi protocol, any other marketplace on Cardano, and earn yield with that as well. So there's a whole system of these algo stablecoins that are going to be kind of experimented on in the first kind of 1, 2, 3 years of DeFi on Cardano. And there's going to be massive winners and losers. I think it's going to be the same model that you see on Ethereum, right? Some things, MakerDAO, Liquidity, some of these protocols die, right? These things like really work very well. And some of them manage to kind of not work so well, or either be very centralized in the end and kind of allow tokens to back it that aren't so decentralized. So there's kind of a very much experimental model that needs to take off to kind of find which approach and framework is going to win out. But in my opinion, the base of building out DeFi on any blockchain network, you look at it, whether it be Cosmos, Polkadot, Solana, Ethereum, it's always what is the algo stablecoin that's being produced that's going to be the bedrock that all of these other DeFi protocols can build on top of. Because, like Aave, like Compound, Liquid's, defensibility is going to come from having a stablecoin moat on the supply side. That's kind of what allows the efficient borrow rates to be produced. You can't do that unless you have a stablecoin being minted at scale that can then be locked in a protocol like Liquid to earn yield. So there's definitely a search for what that's going to be on day one, and that's why we're even spinning up, the whole team to work exclusively on Liquid USD and attempt to bring this thing to mainnet at the same time as Liquid launch. So yeah, this is definitely ambitious, but it's something that we feel passionate about. It's something we think that the Cardano community deserves and kind of needs to have to actually be able to scale its DeFi ecosystem on day one and not have to kind of produce products that could be magical, but you have to rely on a volatile crypto to kind of back them as collateral. Yeah, it's okay because ADA is a very liquid top 5 token, and it's great to have such a large market cap in terms of what that liquidity means for building and using ADA as collateral. But also you'd like to be able to produce kind of more stability in your products where you're not so reliant on the price volatility of ADA. You just get a stable token.
Yeah, definitely stablecoin is needed within what you guys are doing and within a lot of industries. Look, we all love to see the price fluctuations in the likes of ADA and lots of other cryptocurrencies, that they're up and down all the time, hopefully up more than down. But when it comes into some of these applications, you need to be able to, I suppose, have a set value. One coin has to be set. So you mentioned there about the stable coin that you're producing, but you do have a second coin. So I get lots of questions about when can we buy Liquid and where is it? How do I get it now? So you will have your stable coin, which will be used for anyone can essentially swap ADA for the stable coin. And then you also have the LQ token as well. So do you want to talk about that and the difference and just
absolutely.
You guys are doing your fair launch as well?
Yes, correct. So LQ is tied to the Liquid lending protocol, and essentially that's the governance and native asset of Liquid. If you mint some tokens, so at the beginning of this talk, I talked about the depositors minting their interest-bearing tokens. Those Q tokens are what you can use to actually earn LQ, and you just stake those in the protocol. We're building the actual staking pools right now for each individual Q token market. Essentially how this works is the borrower interest that gets repaid in a given market, so ADA, some stable coin, AGIX, right? The borrower interest that's repaid in total in that market for the last epoch determines how much rewards in terms of LQ that market, those Q token stakers earn in the next epoch. So essentially it's a function that's weighted towards how much in USD value your market is producing in terms of borrow demand and interest repaid to the protocol. And those users will earn the most LQ just by staking their tokens within the protocol. Simple 1, 2, okay, you mint your Q tokens when you supply your assets in your wallet to the protocol. You now take your Q tokens and deposit them into the Q token staking pool for that market. We're working on the UI for this right now with the app designers and devs, and it's going really well. It looks very clean and simple. It'll be very straightforward process. And again, we'll build a lot of content and documents and LE5s around this, 1, 2, 3 process. So yeah, the second thing to kind of notice here is that there's market saturation happening in the background as a result of this function. Like what all of these automated financial market makers, like, Compound, Aave, like Uniswap, like what they're actually all trying to do is like find the most efficient way to kind of saturate all of the markets. And what I mean by that is the markets that are producing the most volume for them are the markets where they want more users to supply, or in the case of Uniswap, to LP, to that market, right? Because if you're in a market, and they kind of want it to be, somewhat even, so that all of their markets have some level of supply in LP, but the markets with the highest volume have, the weighted the most, right? Compared to like the percentage of the volume across all the other markets. So how you do that in a system that's going to like basically provide returns in terms of the inflation of the governance token is you weight it towards, in a protocol like Liqwid for lending and interest rates, who's producing the most interest repayment to the protocol compared to all the other markets in the system. Okay, that market should earn the most in terms of, if all else held equal, the most LQ tokens should accrue to those Q token stakers for that market, simply because the most borrower interest was repaid to that market and with that asset that they supplied. So essentially the function is saying, okay, over time, users who are in these other markets who may not be earning as much LQ, but may have the same USD value in terms of Q tokens staked in that market, what they would actually do for incentives is go to, Polyswap or Cardex or whatever DEX comes on Cardano, and swap their tokens, their underlying asset, into that asset that's actually doing really well in terms of borrower interest. Maybe that asset is the stable coin. Maybe that asset is AGIX. It could be any of the supported assets on Liqwid, essentially, that's doing better in terms of LQ APY returns than theirs. The incentives drive them to go to exchange, swap their assets into that token, and then provide that as liquidity. The Q tokens they'll be earning, the LQ they'll be earning from staking their Q tokens will be significantly higher, because if the borrower interest, remains the same, they're going to be still the most high repayment market. Now, of course, some of this is related to like how much you own in the pool share compared to how much is the total supplied, kind of, if you will say, LP in that pool share, because what's going to end up happening is it's kind of like Cardano staking, right? If I own, 1 million and I'm in a pool of just 10 million people, I own 1/10 of that total pool. Okay, if I'm in a pool but I own 5 million, then I own 50% of that. So half the fees go to me, right? So the same concept applies here. It's totally dependent on the total size of the actual pool in terms of the Q token staking pool that you're entering. And when users are in the actual UI on Liqwid.finance, like they'll be able to see when they're entering in, like how many Q tokens they're going to stake in that pool, what they're resulting after that transaction, percent ownership of the pool share will be. And we'll provide like a simple calculator on the back end to kind of do that math for them. And essentially it'll be a nice way to provide market saturation incentives directly built into the LQ distribution function itself. So yeah.
So I suppose everyone in that pool will get the same APY for that set period, but obviously it will fluctuate depending on their ownership of the total pool. So just in summary then for everyone, there is the stable coin, and then there is the LQ one, is the one that it's the one that will go up and down in price all the time. It'll fluctuate with the market, and you're doing a fair launch, I suppose a fair launch, which means that you have to stake to be able to get the LQ token. So that will all come out. Is that set for September? I suppose smart contract dependent, but.
Yes, so it's smart contract dependent 100%. And that's kind of like the meaning, in my opinion, of the fair launch process. It's saying, before the product is released, there will be no, one, dilution of the governance token itself, and two, the ability to provide liquidity and earn the governance token will begin at the same time for everyone. And that's like including our core team and, even everyone, like the founding members, including myself. So I definitely think that that's something that's kind of like foundational to what we've been working on and something that we've stood by since day one. So at Plutus mainnet, assuming we launch on the same day as Plutus goes live, The ability to earn LQ by just minting your Q tokens and then providing those into the staking pool will be a very streamlined, kind of simple process for users who have been just following along, or even look at any of the content and material that will produce, dedicated visuals for these things.
Yeah,
it will be very simple and straightforward. So yeah, maybe even, Paul will get together and do some dedicated content or something. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I was just going to say we'll definitely be on here, and I'll be up for doing some tutorials and stuff like that as well when we get closer to the time as well. So
great.
We'll wrap it up there. Is there anything else you want to put out there with Cardano, Liqwid, anything at all? And we'll close it off then.
Yeah, I'll just answer the question that you had on Liqwid USD and kind of what the difference is between that system itself. So we talked about LQ and the distribution model, and we know that's going live on Plutus mainnet sometime late August or September, right? So Liqwid USD is a stablecoin protocol. It's also itself a collateralized debt position because you're locking ADA to mint the USD stablecoin, and it has a soft peg to the US dollar, obviously. So the ability for arbitrageurs to come in when the price is trading above $1 or when it's trading below $1, and to kind of buy it on one exchange, sell it on another, and kind of that price exposure between buying and then closing out the borrow position, which is going to burn some LQ USD, or actually minting and creating more, which is going to kind of have expansionary pressure on the price of USD. So that's going to actually cause the price to kind of trade at always around $1 US. But whenever users mint LQUSD, which is like the actual algo stablecoin that gets minted when you lock your ADA, you have the ability to actually take that and supply it in what we're calling the stability pool. And that will allow you to earn what's the system token LQX in LQUSD, which is not a governance token at all. There is no governance in the system at all. Actually, it's just a contract that we deploy, and the LQX is simply accepting the revenue and the fees that get generated whenever there's an issuance of LQUSD or a redemption of ADA. So you're burning your LQUSD and closing that position. There's a small fee that gets paid out, and that accrues to the LQX holders. So essentially, it's a system token that takes protocol revenues. It has no governance properties at all. So it's very different than LQ actually, and it's very specific to what LQUSD is trying to do in terms of being a very decentralized, censorship-resistant algo stablecoin borrowing protocol that's actually capital efficient and allows you to open a loan and remain long exposure to ADA, which is like the most key part. Like users actually still hold their entire exposure to the upside appreciation of ADA when they open a position in Liqwid USD. In that kind of case, it's similar to like how MakerDAO and DAI work today. Like when I lock up my ETH in a MakerDAO vault, I'm still long on my ETH exposure as long as I have a collateral ratio that's above the minimum percent and I don't get liquidated. I have stable US dollar, right, at whatever the amount allowed is according to the collateral factor. I feel like it's around 150%, right? And I also have complete exposure to my ETH, which is great. That's what traders and users who are minting stable coins actually want today.
Okay, and just on the X token then that you get for the fees, is there a direct way to convert that back to the USD equivalent or to ADA then, or how does how are the fees paid there?
So the fees are paid from the actual contract that's minting and redeeming. So the contract itself is a collateralized debt position smart contract that's saying when a user actually deposits ADA, they pay a small fee to mint the actual LQUSD stablecoin. And that fee has a base rate of around, I want to say 5 basis points, and it can scale up or down depending on kind of the recent redemptions and issuances in the entire protocol. So essentially that smart contract pays a part of that fee out to the LQX holders pro rata. So compared to how much LQX I stake in the LQX staking pool, that's what actually determines how much of these fees I earn in the system. How do I earn the LQX token? Okay. I take my LQUSD that I just minted by locking my ADA, and I deposit that into the stability pool. So it's kind of like, kind of like Liqwid, it has like a 1-2 system for one earning the system token, and then simply staking the system token to earn the protocol revenues. The way the UTXO model in Cardano Plutus works, you kind of need a way to point to what the specific output for that contract or what that transaction will be. in this case, the specific output for the minting transaction will be, or one of the outputs rather, will be the revenue, the base rate plus whatever fee, depending on the timing of that mint or redemption, that gets paid directly to this LQX, staking pool, if you will. And then you can claim part of that based on how much LQX you're staking.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there. We're just in around the 30 minutes now. So thanks very much for coming on. We definitely will connect again over the summer and over the next few weeks, I suppose, to see how things are going. Even if there's a 5-minute slot that you want to come in and give updates at any stage, we can organize that as well. Everyone watching, if you found this useful, please make sure that you subscribe, give the video a like, and share this out there. Let people know what is going on Cardano right now, and that there is a lot more to come, especially from Liqwid, whose links will all be down below as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks, DC.
Thanks, man. We'll come out with documentation for all this, I promise. You guys will be able to read it all and go through the contracts. But yeah, this is great. Thanks, Paul.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Take care.